sewing friends, it's Emily from Life Sew Savory, and today I'm going to be sewing a cute pair of kids shorts made out of either sweatshirt fleece or French terry or some equally medium weight bottom fabric that has a little bit of stretch in it. So this is not really for woven, but it works great with sweatshirt fleece, French terry, and that's the two things I've tried it in. I've also made it in a stretch woven, which was beautiful as well. And you can find all the details by clicking the link in the description of this video to download the free pattern and find out more information. So while you guys are all joining up, I'm gonna go ahead and do my shares. Go ahead and let me know either where you're watching from or what you're up to today, and we will get started. So like I said, I'm sewing these really fun sweatshirt fleece or French terry shorts with pockets. Great for boys or girls alike. It's a loose fit and just a great looking pair of shorts. So I'm going to be making them out of French terry today, but I've also made them out of sweatshirt fleece. Yeah, and stretch woven. So you can find the information, like I said, by clicking the link in the description of this video, which will take you over to my page and give you all those details. But I'm also going to sew one for you live here as soon as I do my share. So hi Phyllis, hi Mary. Glad you guys are joining in. And hopefully we have a great show today. I'm super excited. Hi Arnell. All right, did you guys, so yesterday I was on the Brother Sews Facebook page with Angela. I don't know how many of you saw that, but we had a great time. Sorry, I can't talk and type. We had a great time and I made a really cute little drawstring bag, which was a fun and easy and quick project. So if you haven't seen that, you can head over to the Brother Sews page and check out what we sewed yesterday. And once a month, I'm on the Brother Sews Facebook page with Angela. And then the rest of the time on Wednesday, you guys know you can find me here at 3 p.m. Eastern. So I am just going to do a couple of shares here. Then I will show you. Oh, you saw it. Yay. Okay, so we have a couple people who yesterday saw the backpack, drawstring bag. I'm never sure what to call something tiny like that. A knapsack. It's a small little day pack, although you could make it in a lot of sizes, which we were talking about yesterday. So, all right, we are about ready to get started. Thank you all for joining. I'm excited to see you here today. It's kind of a cloudy, not so nice day here in Colorado, but hopefully you are enjoying, maybe there's some beautiful spring weather somewhere around. Okay, so I don't know if I need to bring up the tutorial or not. I'm thinking I can create this, but you never know. I'm just gonna scroll down. So I have my tutorial should I need it. So okay, here's what we are sewing. All right, so these really cute pants or shorts, these are made out of French terry, which is just like what I'm gonna be sewing it today. This pair has a drawstring. I may or may not actually add a drawstring because my kids never use that. I have a model in the house today. I actually have two boys home today. One is home on quarantine because he was exposed to COVID, and the other one just has a little bit of a cough. So we are keeping him home. Yep, here's one. Here's the healthy quarantine one. And the other one just has a little bit of a cough. So we are keeping him home on a precaution and not exposing anyone else to his cold. So I actually have two boys. Youngest is going to be modeling these shorts as I cut them out in his size. And of course the other one said, where's my shorts as well. So sometimes they both want the same thing. So these shorts have great pockets and they're super comfy. Plus, I think they're a really nice looking pair of shorts as well, in addition to being super comfortable. So Let me show you what I've cut out and then we'll get sewing. So this is the fabric that I'm going to be using today. I think that's really fun. It's from Raspberry Creek Fabrics and is a fun and stylish French terry that I think actually will make a nice looking pair of shorts. I've attempted to stripe match when I cut out, so we'll see how it actually works when I put it together. But pocket pouch, 2 pockets, 2 shorts front, 2. Isn't that nice fabric? I love it. 2 of those. Waistband, 1 cut on the fold, and back of the shorts, 2 cut in mirror. So those are the pieces you need in addition to some elastic, which I have right here, and what else was I gonna say? If you wanna do a drawstring, you will need drawstring. This pair has some bias tape sewn shut so that it creates a nice little string. I'm hoping to just make these tight enough that they don't need a drawstring at all and go with it like that. So that's what we're gonna be doing today. I'm excited that you're here joining me, and let's head over to our sewing area and try and put these together. Okay, so I don't actually think I'm gonna be using this machine. Well, we'll see. But I have my serger set up here with, it just has some cream fabric on it, which should work great for the project. And then I did put some tan thread on the cover stitch for top stitching. So we'll switch back and forth between the two and hopefully create shorts like we want. So the first thing that we're going to do is to sew the curved seam on both the front and the back of the shorts, okay? So like all of my free patterns, they include a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So I will be using that as I sew. Find the right presser foot here. It's like a presser foot jungle underneath my desk. And I did already test both the serger and the cover stitch, so hopefully we can zip right along. I think it was last week when you guys were watching, my serger was having really weird, it was sounding weird, and then it kept breaking needles, and I don't know that I ever really figured out what it was, but I just adjusted the tension and that seemed to help. So not sure what happened. All right, so there's that curved seam sewn, and then when we open up the back, there's the back of the shorts, and whoops, I already didn't pay close attention to my stripes, but close enough on the back. So let me make sure when I sew these front, since this will be on the very front of the shorts, that I make sure my stripes are matched just a little bit better. You don't want to stretch out your fabric, but with knit fabric, you do have just a tiny bit of wiggle room to make sure that you adjust those stripes and get them lined up. You can sort of ease it together, if you will. Okay, so there's the front of the shorts. Cute. And these almost look like swim shorts, but I think they're gonna still be a really nice look. Okay, so you can add stitching detail for a faux fly, and it is purely decorative. Okay, so here I used black stitching, you can see here, and I stitched down and added a faux fly, and there's nothing behind it, right? It's just top stitching. So I'm gonna leave that off of this version and see if I like it. If not, I can always go back later and add that top stitching, but I'm just wondering how much does that really affect the look of the shorts, and so we can compare the two when we're finished, okay? All right, so the next step, we're going to begin assembling the pockets. So you're going to take the pocket pouch, which also has an angled edge, just like the side of the shorts right here. And you're going to line up that angled edge, and we're going to sew those together. I'm making sure to line up the top of the pocket with the top of the shorts. And then once I do sew this, I will top stitch this over using the cover stitch machine so that we have a nice finished edge along there. Okay, so we'll stitch the pocket in place. Generally, when you're working with knit fabric, this being French terry, you want to try not to stretch any of your fabric when you're sewing, because that can leave it looking wavy or stretched out. So, you know, we generally just want to try to sew straight down as much as we can and not stretch things out. If your fabric does look stretched out when you're finished, usually you can fix that with a quick iron or a wash and dry will fix that. So I did not attempt to stripe match on this pocket pouch, but I am hoping that the rest of the pocket, I tried to match the rest that will extend past here. But before we sew that on, I want to go ahead and top stitch along the edge of this angled folded over line. So you take your pocket and fold it over to the back. And then I'm going to attempt to stitch right down the edge. And I have 2 needles on my, let's see, did I just break a thread? Okay, 2 needles on my cover stitch. You can have up to 3, but I only have 2 threaded. So that gives a nice top stitching along the edge of that pocket. Okay, and then here's what the back of the cover stitch looks like with that looper. So we will go ahead and repeat on the other side. And I'm just folding over that pocket and top stitching down the side. Trying not to stretch it out like I just was talking about. We just want to top stitch it. We don't really want to make it any longer. Okay, so there's the other side of the pocket top stitched. And we will now add the pocket pouches. So, what are you doing?
I finished. We didn't have to call it today. They're finishing Hercules.
What about the vocabulary?
No, they're not going to get
Okay, okay. All right, so you, on the back side of your shorts, you will place with right sides together the pocket on that pocket pouch. And the curved inside edge should line up. Now here's where I want to try and straight match. So I'm going to flip this over and try and make sure that these stripes are lined up before I pin it in case I need to adjust it. So you can see here how I'm trying to match the stripes along there. Okay? And then once I think that's pretty good, I'm going to go ahead and lift up these 2 edges of the pocket fabric and pin or clip along this curved edge, which is also where we will sew. Okay, so we'll sew right along there to insert the pocket. So now let's see how the other side lines up as well. Okay, so I'm going to line up that curved edge, and then I'll flip it over and see how does that line up with my stripes. Okay, so just a slight adjustment here to get my stripes lined up. And if you really are wanting these, you know, to make sure they stay, which I do, I'm going to stick a pin right here to kind of help that stay together. And then I can flip it back over, and like last time, we're going to lift these two edges. So we aren't going to be sewing to the main shorts fabric. We're just sewing these two layers of the pocket together. And I'm going to add a pin on this side just to hold it together while we sew. Okay. So here's the front. And the stripe matching is pretty okay.
Can 5/7 be reduced?
Okay, little math question there in the background as he's working on his homework. Okay, so there's the front of the shorts. We're trying to keep those stripes going continuously across. And now I'm going to sew that curved pocket pouch to have the pockets inserted. When you're dealing with French terry or other knit fabric, you do not have to finish the raw edges. This sort of fabric will not fray, but I love using my serger because it gives a nice stretch stitch. And if you don't use your serger and you just use a sewing machine, then you do have to make sure that all your stitches are stretchy, because as these get pulled and worn, they will, if you just sew it with a straight stitch, your seams will pop. So you can either use a knit stitch or a zigzag to stitch these together. All right, so there is one sewn pocket, and then back to the front side. Let's sew that curve on the other side. And you can see here how I have a clip up top. This is simply to hold the layers of the pocket on the back and the shorts on the front together until we sew the waistband on. But you can see here the nice sewn in pocket, and then if I take my pin out, I can put my hand right in there, and now we have both pockets sewn into the front of the shorts. So looking fabulous and super cute. Again, not sure, should we be adding that faux fly top stitching? I'm not, we might, I still might, but I'm not positive. Okay, so the next step that we are going to complete is to sew the side seams of the shorts. So I'm going to go ahead and line up the top. Again, I tried to stripe match. We'll see as I actually put it together. Did that work? I don't want to have to stretch or pull it. If it's just like a 1/4 inch like this, I might just trim that off for the sake of having good stripes. So I'm trying to match a stripe and then put a pin or a clip there and then see does between line up. So far my cutting worked out the way I wanted to, which was to have the stripes line up. Okay, and we'll do the other side as well. And then I'm just pinning down the side. When you are at the pocket, make sure it's really thick, but you have the back, the 2 layers of the pocket, and the front all lined up. So it's actually quite a big sort of thickness of fabric. But for those of you just joining, we are sewing a pair of sweatshirt fleece, or you can also make them with French terry, which is what I'm doing here. Shorts. They are cut in a longer style, looser fit, and I've made them for my boys, but they could totally be for girls as well who like this style of shorts. So they, I think, are in sizes 4 to 16, so a big range of which size kids you can sew for. And in fact, this summer, those of you who have been following me for a while know that every summer I make clothes for all the cousins on my side of the family. So I think what I'm going to do is make the younger girls dresses because they like dresses. The baby, maybe both babies, at least one baby, a romper, because we have a newborn in the family. And then the boys will get these shorts because I found fun French terry fabric I want to use. And then maybe my teenage niece, who doesn't really like dresses, I might make her this same style of shorts so it matches the boys with the French terry, and I might just shorten them a little bit. Not short shorts, but maybe not knee length shorts. Okay, so maybe a few inches above the knee. So that will be fun, and I'm sure you guys will see my progress along the way. I might even sew one of those things live, as I will need to make 12 different outfits before our time together this summer. So I'm always so happy that I did it, but sometimes in the middle of sewing that many things, and you guys know I don't love to mass produce. People say, why don't you sell what you make? And my number one reason is, well, I don't really enjoy sewing the same thing over and over and over. Well, I'm gonna have to this summer if I'm going to sew like 8 dresses. So I might just have to get an assembly line going and do it. All right, let's turn these right side out. I'm thinking I will top stitch the side seams just for a nice little finished look. Okay, so there's the front of our shorts. I think they're looking amazing. Here's the back, and here's that side seam. Pretty good on the stripes. Not perfect, but pretty good. For boys, they're good enough, right? Let me bring this camera a little bit closer to the cover stitch so you can really see what I'm top stitching here. And I'm going to fold the seam allowance over to the back. So I'm stitching on the back panel. I don't want to be stitching here on the front because this is really bulky going over. Oop, look at that. There's a hole. Speaking of all those layers, they do. Someone said, I hope your relatives appreciate it. They do. I wouldn't do it if no one liked it. But the girls love it, and we all look forward to it every year. And then I always like, because I get to post about it and write about the patterns that I used. So I feel like everyone wins. Last year, we definitely took the easy way out because we just had the kids paint their own shirts, and I didn't even make the shirts. So that was definitely a simple summer, but so I think I'm ready to tackle a bigger project again this summer. Okay, so this is a cover stitch machine, which is simply for top stitching. So people will often ask, what is a cover stitch? What does it do? Or I just saw today in a sewing group on Facebook, someone had a picture of a t-shirt hem, and they said, how do I make this hem? Well, the answer is, unless you have a cover stitch machine, you really can't make that hem because it has needles on the top and then it has a looper on the bottom, which creates a beautiful 2-needle seam with, just making sure I'm not stitching through the back, with that looper on the back. So you can replicate this pretty well with a twin needle on your sewing machine, and I used that method for many years. sewing for my kids, and actually really loved the look and the durability of even just the twin needle. So what I didn't ever get very good at was using the wide twin needle. So there's two widths. There's a narrow twin needle and then there's a wider one. And the wider one, my fabric would always tunnel up, which means it would sort of pull and bump the fabric. And I never was able to figure out how to get that not to happen. So I love using this because it doesn't tunnel the fabric. So let's see if I can pull this back through, back under. I sewed myself into a circle. But so you can see here how I've top stitched the side, and it's actually pretty matching thread. So can you see a little bit on the blue? There is the stitching on the side. So just adds a nice finish. This is the widest. I do not have the middle center needle in place, which would give me 3 needle stitches. So I just have the 2 going because I kind of like that wide top stitch. So the other great thing about a cover stitch machine is that, it is stuck. I don't know if I can salvage this. I might just have to. Let's see if I can continue sewing. The great thing about a cover stitch machine is when you're sewing with knit fabrics, like I am right now, that it's a stretchy stitch, but obviously you can see I'm having issues. I don't know what it's doing. I feel like I need to take it out and try again. So it was being weird stitching along there and leaving some funny designs. So we'll just stitch over what we did, but I am, before I go at my real fabric again, I am going to test this on a scrap just to make sure it's not messed up. So I don't want to have it be yucky again. We'll just go along the edge of this waistband. Okay, just checking in. So, and checking my stitches. All right, it all looks good. I don't know what was going on. Let's try again. See if we can, it's running much smoother now, so I don't know what was happening. Again, I folded my seam allowance towards the back of the shorts, so I'm actually stitching on the back piece, not the front piece, and just to the side of the seam, right? So I've folded the seam allowance over, and then my left needle is pretty close to that seam, but not on it. So we're not stitching in the seam, we're stitching right next to it, hopefully, to create that stitch. And I think maybe what happened was something got messed up, because at this point right here, I have to pull my threads kind of out of the way to pull this back out. And I'm wondering if it didn't get reset after that. So anyway, we now have the other side seam sewn as well. Okay, so back over here to the serger, we are going to next, this is looking very crooked. We're going to next with right sides together, sew the inseam. And I'm going to do that by first matching up that center seam and then working out towards the edge with some clips just to make sure it's all laying nicely. And then we'll go ahead and sew up that inseam by sewing up one leg, across the center, and then down the other leg. So, you know, you want the center to be sewn together well. That part of your shorts gets quite a lot of wear and tear and pull, and we don't want a hole in the middle of our shorts, so make sure you take the time to sew that part strongly, and you can also reinforce that with some stitching if you want to. I was also thinking, instead of sewing a faux fly, what I might do instead of sewing the faux fly, do I top stitch, you know, down and up? I'm not sure. I can't decide. I think I'll probably end up going back and putting the faux fly on it. Okay, so at this point we're ready to do our waistband. Now, if you're going to add a drawstring, I'm not going to do that today, so you'll want to follow the instructions in the written tutorial, which you can find by clicking the link in the description of this video, and you can go ahead and download the free pattern there through the link, as well as see the full tutorial in picture step for sewing this. So if you need any help with any of these steps, you can go back and see the written and photo description of those as we're going through this. So we're not doing the drawstring, but if you want to, go check that out in that written tutorial. Okay, so now I'm going to double check my waistband width, and because I was trying to match the stripes, I did ease together this top of the shorts a little bit. So I'm just going to trim that 1/4 inch that didn't line up very well off the top of the shorts, as well as just even it up, okay, so that that is on the back of the shorts, or that the side seams are all lined up. And I'm cutting off some of these extra threads that get in the way. Clean this up a little bit so we can move on to the next step. All right, so the waistband is also stretchy fabric, so it can be stretched to fit. There is a pattern piece for the waistband in the printable pattern, but I always like to double check, and it looks like this is going to be just fine. Double check that it is a good size before I sew it in a circle. Okay, now you can stretch it a little bit. This is French terry, it will stretch, but you just don't want it to be too big so that it's gaping or weird, or I have to stretch out the shorts. So I definitely don't want that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is this fold right here, where we folded over the waistband, right, to leave a spot for the elastic. We're going to attach and line up with the back of the shorts. So it does make a bulky spot, but my kids like when the waistband back seam is at the back of the shorts, because sometimes with homemade clothes, I'm not sure why, because there are pockets on these shorts, but there are times where they can't seem to tell the back from the front. So I like to put the seam in the back. And now what I'm going to do is, with this folded in half, I am working my way around towards the front of the shorts, pinning these 3 layers together. And the 3 layers I have are 1 of shorts and 2 of waistband, because we have our waistband folded over with those long raw edges together. Okay, so I'm going to work a few clips on either side just to make sure this fits, and that gives us a little bit of wiggle room should we need to pull or stretch our waistband at all to fit. And then right here we have a big bulk because we have the top of that pocket, so we have to make sure that we fit that in. Okay, so keep working my way around to the center, keeping the edges lined up. And then when you get to where the pocket is, make sure you pin that layer of the pocket as well. Around to the center seam. Okay, so now we have the waistband pinned on, and you can see that when we flip it up, this will be the color, which looks cute. And we have our pockets. We can probably take the pocket pins out. Have our pockets right here, which looks great. Those pins were just holding it all in place. Okay, so I'm going to sew this, and I'm going to leave a couple inch opening in the back to thread my elastic through. And then I probably will end up changing the thread on my sewing machine, because now that I'm thinking about it, I will want that for sewing both the faux fly and top stitching the elastic, which I will show you what I'm talking about. So if you wanted to put your put the drawstring in, make sure you read the instructions for that before you start sewing this waistband, because I've already gone too far if I wanted to put a drawstring in. Okay, and hopefully I'm now on that sort of bulky layer of the pocket where we have like 5 layers of French terry fabric. So I'm trying to sew slowly through there. Give my machine a little helping hand if it needs. And hopefully, I'm trying to keep it lined up, but hopefully catching all those layers of fabric so we don't have any holes when we go to flip our waistband up. If you have any questions, feel free to ask as I'm sewing. I'm happy to answer them if I can see what you're asking. And if I miss it, it's not on purpose, so go ahead and ask again. Remember to leave that opening for threading the elastic in the back, which is about where I'm at. Okay, and then we will flip up our waistband and hope that there aren't any holes and we sewed all the layers together correctly. So looks pretty good, okay? So now the next step for us is to thread the elastic, which I've already pre-cut. I'm going to take my elastic threader here, which is not the official term, of course, but what I like to call it. And I'm threading, it's 1.5 inch elastic, so it just fits tightly into this casing, but that is going to give us a nice look on our waistband. And then I will show you how we're going to top stitch this, which will hold the elastic in place and also give our shorts a nice finished look. So I'm just threading a few inches and then pulling and straightening. Okay, so you can see that is looking awesome on the waistband. And like anytime you're threading elastic, make sure you don't pull this end through, because then you have to start over. Sometimes what I will do is when I get close and I feel like, ooh, that could pull inside, I will take a pin and I'll pin through the casing and the elastic so that this cannot be pulled inside. So there's my little tip to make sure that your elastic stays where it's supposed to. But now I am still trying to move the fabric around so we can pull this out, okay? And then you do also want to make sure that you didn't twist your elastic. So I want to pin here, and then I want to double check that my elastic is straight. I think it is. It's just really gathered up. You can see it's really gathered up at the moment. Okay, so before we sew that elastic and also top stitch, let me take off this pretty pink thread and put on, I'm just going to put on this neutral sort of dark tan, which will go well with the colors already in my project. What? It's unwinding very strangely. Okay, so we'll quick thread this through. I have gray in the bobbin, so that works fine. We will leave that. We also have a knit needle already in place, a stretch needle for stretch fabrics, so that works great. And what I'm now going to do is take this elastic, sort of pull it out a little bit, and then zigzag to complete the circle, okay? Because we want this to be a circle elastic so we can pull it inside the casing. So I corner back stitch and then sew down and back. You really want to make sure your elastic is sewed securely so that as these shorts are worn all summer long, that they wear like you want them to. So at this point, we're going to straighten out our elastic. Pray that we really did measure it correctly, not measure it correctly, but not get a twist in there. And we want to try to even out those gathers. But I just think that's a great looking waistband on there, and the tight fit of the elastic really makes a great look. So the next thing I want to do is close this hole where I threaded the elastic. So I'm going to quick pop this back onto the serger and sew that hole closed. Okay, so there is that in the back. Again, keep making sure these are all even gathers. All right, so before we hem these shorts, I want to go ahead and run a couple of lines of top stitching on the elastic because I think this gives the waistband a really fun finished look. Now you can see on this one, we also ran a drawstring through, you know, that casing. It's a little bit hard on the black, so that we could have a drawstring if we needed. But what we're gonna do, oh, here's the back, I used orange, so you can see a little bit better. We're gonna run stitching a 1/4 inch from the top and a 1/4 inch from the bottom, which just creates a nice finished look on that elastic. But what I am gonna do before I do that is, because I just worked around and, you know, hopefully got the elastic pretty evenly distributed, I'm gonna stick some pins through the casing and through the elastic here to hold it in place. So as I'm stretching and sewing, hopefully that elastic doesn't slide around, and this will continue to make sure we have those even gathers. Okay, so starting in the back, I'm going to start with stitching at the top. we're gonna go to our straight stitch. I'm gonna put it a length of 3. And I'm gonna use the edge of my presser foot as a guide. And what I need to do is stretch as I sew, because I actually don't wanna sew any of those gathers, but it will gather right back up as soon as I let go of it. But we're sewing on straight fabric. So you can see I have one hand on the back and one hand on the front, and I have to pull pretty firmly to make sure that this flattens out and I'm sewing on non-gathered fabric. But this will give our waistband just that extra finishing touch, and I think adds a nice detail with very little effort, and also keeps your elastic from twisting at all. It can't twist anymore because it's sewn down. No twisting, no pulling. It is stuck in place. And I'm almost back around to where I started. Okay, so we're gonna back stitch, cut our thread, and then I'm going to just slide it down, and we're going to use the other side of the presser foot along the edge of the top edge of the shorts as our guide to sew again. So again, we are stretching and pulling, and now sewing along the bottom edge of the waistband to secure the elastic again and create that nice finished look. So I just love wide elastic casing finished with this method. I think it is a pretty easy detail to add that it's a lot of bang for your buck on the effort, is what I will say. I feel like it's pretty easy to do and looks great. This bottom edge to sew is a little bit trickier than the top edge, just because this, the shorts fabric likes to sort of pucker up. I feel like it gets a little bit in the way, but do your best, fight the fabric, and sew along there. Okay, so we're almost all the way around. We're going to back stitch where we started. Trim off this little thread tail, not sure where that came from. And let's take a look. Doesn't that waistband look so great? I just think that is such a fun and easy finishing touch to add along there. Okay, so compared to this one, has a drawstring coming out of the middle. This one does not. We're hoping these are tight enough that they will fit on their own. All right, finally, we are going to hem these shorts, and then we're gonna call my model to try these on. Now, I already know that that as cut out, the length of fabric is pretty great. So I'm not going to measure these, but you could, if you weren't sure about the length, try them on at this point. Try them on your intended recipient, not yourself, unless you're gonna fit into this. Try them on yourself, or try them on your child, and make sure that the length was good. So I'm gonna fold over about a 3/4 inch hem. We're sliding it into the cover stitch, and I am starting on that inside leg seam, because then when I come back around, it's a great place for me to be able to hide my back stitching. And we're using the 2-thread stitch again. And I'm feeling underneath where I fold this over to know where to sew. So over that other side seam, this is a little bit in the way. I could use a little bit longer desk, but there's just no space right here to put one. So we make do with what we have. So I'm turning it under. You could, of course, pin or clip this all the way around before you start sewing. I know not all of you like to turn up as you go like I am demonstrating. So when you get back, you're going to go about 2 inches over your other stitching to finish the cover stitching. Pull up the needles, and then at this point, lift the presser foot and pull out some of that thread. We get the fabric away from the needles, chain off a couple of stitches, and then because we pulled that thread out, you can go ahead and on the back of your seam, you should be able to pull through those loose ends I just cut. One came right out. The other one seemed to go back up there, but I think I've got it. Okay, so then once I have the threads pulled to the back, I like to go ahead and just tie off with a couple of knots before I cut the thread. So that's how I finish my cover stitch threads that are sewn in the round, which is this circle here. Okay, and then here is the hem on the bottom of those shorts. Let's do the other leg. Again, starting on the inseam. One of my needle threads came out. Do the other hem, and then we will be ready for the modeling session. Okay, so we're turning up my 3/4 inch. It's sometimes hard to get that fabric under there started, and then once you start going, it's no problem, but it's the getting it in there. It's not. Okay, so you guys can see, even just from my experience today, that compared with the serger and my sewing machine, this is finicky. Even I mean, I've been sewing on this for years, and it just, compared to the other machines, I find it so much harder to work. So if you're having trouble with your cover stitch, don't freak out. Everyone does, I think. It's just not the machine that I can sit down and sew perfectly every time. That is not this machine. But when it does work and when I get it going, the results are just fabulous. So I keep at it. I haven't given up yet. And when a needle breaks, or I mean when a thread breaks, I just figure out how to fix it because the results are worth it. So anyway, if you're thinking about a cover stitch, they're fabulous, but just, I would say, be prepared. I don't know if anyone else has any other fabulous cover stitch advice, but that's mine. Be prepared to work with it, not it work with you, like your other machines. My serger, my sewing machines, which I have a few, they all work with me. They don't make me fight or work. They just do what they're told every time. This machine, not so much, not so much. All right, let's see if I can chain this off better. Yeah, so this time I kept better loops on the back, so I can easily just pull those out and then tie my couple of knots on the back side. Trim those. And now we're ready. So again, I still might go back and add I'll pick a ghost. Faux fly stitching, but it's just top stitching. And this one I did in black on the gray. So I probably will use that tan on the front here and just, make a little faux fly right there. So let's call Max to try these on. Hey, Max. Max? Come on out, buddy. All right, so the model, this is the front, okay? Is going to put them on, and then we will show you in just a second. So Any other questions while we're waiting a minute? This free pattern again is available by clicking the link in the description of this video. You can go ahead and grab it and download the free pattern for your use or whoever you're sewing for. And it's great because, you know, as my boys get bigger, this one is available in larger sizes. So I like it because I can keep sewing for them. All right, he's picking threads off it. All right, so stand over here a little bit. Can you lift this up? All right, so, oh yeah, there's threads all over. Put your hands in the pockets. Looking pretty good. So this is the fit that you will get just by going off the size chart. Okay, so this is a size large, made for his 26-inch waist, which is what fits in the size chart. Can you spin around, turn around? Take your hands out of your pockets. Okay, and then you can see the back. It's got a good rise. Come here, I'm so far away. A good waistband fit. And I don't know, I think it looks great. So there is the boys or the kids sweatshirt fleece shorts sewn in French terry, modeled by Max and sewn by me. So you can go change if you want, buddy. Anyway, that's today's sewing tutorial. I hope you'll join next week where we'll sew something else fun and exciting and hopefully inspire you to make more amazing things. So I'm off to sew a little bit of a faux fly top stitch to finish off these shorts and then move on with my day. Hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday. I will see you next week. Bye.